Hi guys and welcome to Crazy Pepper Revenge. This channel is all about crazy true stories, stuff that happens in real life when things get a little bit messy, people dealing with drama, cheating, lies, breakups, and even revenge. Some stories are wild, some are emotional, but all of them will keep you watching. If you like real talk and real situations, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stick around. This is Crazy Pepper Revenge, where the stories get spicy. Hospital's fluorescent lights buzzed like angry wasps above my uncle's deathbed. Andrew Marlowe, 67 years old, tubes snaking from his arms, gripped my wrist with surprising strength. "Chris," he wheezed, eyes darting toward the door. "The safe! Combination is Nina's birthday backwards. Don't trust—" His monitor flatlined with a piercing shriek. I stared at his lifeless face, my heart hammering. "Don't trust what?" Two nurses rushed in, pushing me aside as they worked frantically. But Andrew was gone, taking his warning with him. Nina appeared in the doorway, mascara streaked, clutching her phone. "Oh, God, Chris, I'm so sorry." She moved to embrace me, but something in her eyes, relief, made me step back. "When did you get here?" I asked. "Just now. Traffic was insane." She glanced at Andrew's body, then quickly away. "We should go. There's nothing more we can do." But there was. Andrew had left me something. And judging by Nina's nervous energy, she knew it. 3 days after the funeral, I stood in Andrew's cabin, staring at the floor safe he'd mentioned. The combination, Nina's birthday reversed, clicked open. Inside lay a USB drive, manila folders, financial documents, and a handwritten note that made me froze. "She's not who you think." I tried to warn her. I think they used her. If I'm gone, someone silenced me. The compound NX13, check my work. "They're coming for you next. Don't trust Nina with this information. She's been compromised. Victoria Bell knows everything." Victoria Bell. The name meant nothing to me, but Andrew had underlined it 3 times. I grabbed the first folder labeled Nina, Confidential. Inside were bank statements showing mysterious transfers totaling $847,000 to Nina's personal accounts over 18 months. Photos of her with a tall, elegant woman I'd never seen. Intimate shots taken at expensive restaurants, hotel lobbies, private clubs. The woman had striking silver hair and expensive taste in everything from jewelry to wine. But the audio transcripts made my stomach churn. Nina. Andrew's getting suspicious again. He's demanding the full trial data from Phase 3. Victoria. Then we accelerate the timeline. "The board won't wait forever, darling." Nina. "Victoria, if he files that whistleblower complaint with the FDA..." Victoria. "He won't. Trust me. I've handled problematic researchers before." Nina. "What does that mean exactly?" Victoria. "It means Andrew Marlowe will have a very unfortunate accident. Heart failure, completely natural. The beauty of NX13 is its subtlety." Nina. "You're talking about..." Victoria. "I'm talking about protecting our investment, protecting our future. Unless you prefer to explain to federal investigators how you've been laundering pharmaceutical research money through your personal accounts." I plugged in the USB with trembling fingers. Andrew had recorded everything. Hours of conversations, encrypted files, damning evidence that my wife of 8 years had betrayed not just me, but helped orchestrate the elimination of the only father figure I'd ever known. The deeper I dug, the worse it became. Nina worked for Meridian Pharmaceuticals as senior legal counsel. Dr. Victoria Bell, their chief compliance auditor and head of experimental research, had been conducting illegal human trials of experimental pills for nearly 3 years. Andrew, as a retired FDA research analyst, had discovered their scheme and threatened to expose it, so they'd eliminated him. With NX13, a prototype sedative so dangerous it had been banned from human testing after laboratory animals experienced massive organ failure within hours of injection. But this wasn't just about pharmaceutical fraud. The files revealed a systematic elimination program targeting anyone who threatened Meridian's research. 17 people over 2 years, researchers, test subjects, family members who asked too many questions, all ruled natural deaths, all injected with NX13. And Nina had been Dr. Bell's inside operative from the beginning. That night, Nina came home late from client meetings. She kissed my cheek, her lips tasting like wine and lies. "How was your day, honey?" she asked, hanging her designer coat. New, expensive, nothing she could afford on her legal salary. I studied her face, the same face I'd kissed on our wedding day, the same green eyes that once held only love. Now I saw calculation behind them, cold assessment of how much I might know. "Fine," I said carefully. "Just missing Andrew." Been going through his research. Her expression flickered. Fear, guilt, panic quickly masked. His research? I thought he was retired. Apparently not. He was investigating pharmaceutical companies, building quite a case against illegal experimentation. She moved to the wine fridge, hands shaking slightly. Chris, you know Andrew. He saw conspiracies everywhere. Maybe it's better to let sleeping dogs lie. Let sleeping dogs lie, like letting Andrew's elimination go unpunished. Maybe, I said, but he left me some interesting files about Meridian Pharmaceuticals, about someone named Victoria Bell. The wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against the kitchen tile. Sorry, she gasped, kneeling to clean up the mess. Clumsy, but I saw her hands trembling, saw the terror in her eyes. She knew I was closing in. Do you know Dr. Bell? I pressed. From work? She's mentioned in some compliance reports. Why? Another lie. The photos in Andrew's files showed them together dozens of times, intimate meals, private meetings, weekend trips to expensive resorts. Just curious. Andrew seemed particularly interested in her research methodologies. Nina's cleaning became frantic, almost violent. She cut her finger on a shard, deep red drops mixing with the spilled wine. I should shower, she said, fleeing toward the stairs. I watched her go, noting how she clutched her phone like a lifeline. Within minutes, I heard hushed conversation from the bathroom. A call to someone, probably Dr. Bell, warning that I was asking questions. By then, she knew she was in too deep. If she didn't keep feeding Victoria information, she feared they'd expose her too. Over the next week, I became someone else entirely. Chris, the security systems technician, vanished, replaced by Chris, the predator. I installed monitoring software on Nina's work tablet while she showered. I tracked her movements using GPS devices hidden in her car and briefcase. I recorded her phone calls, documented every lie, every secret meeting. The evidence painted a horrifying picture of systematic elimination and pharmaceutical fraud. Nina and Dr. Bell had been conducting their conspiracy for over 2 years, using illegal pills trials to fund their operation while eliminating anyone who threatened exposure. When Andrew discovered their scheme, they decided he had to disappear. Nina had arranged the hospital meeting where they'd administered NX13 to his IV line. She'd held his hand while he died, whispering lies about loving him while Dr. Bell watched from the corridor. But Andrew had suspected their betrayal. His final recordings revealed he'd been building a case for months, gathering evidence, preparing to expose everything. He'd trusted Nina with some information, hoping she'd help bring down the conspiracy from inside Meridian. Instead, she'd delivered him to his executioners. My rage burned like molten steel in my chest. She chose money over family, over truth, over me. Nina's calendar showed regular meetings with VB at exclusive restaurants across the city. I followed her to one, watching through tinted windows as she and Dr. Bell sat intimately close, discussing pills trial data and neutralization schedules. Victoria Bell was everything I'd expected from the photos. Elegant, radiating the confidence of someone accustomed to playing with human lives. She wore expensive jewelry, drove a luxury sedan, and treated waitstaff like servants. Her silver hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, her smile cold as winter. I planted listening devices in Nina's car, in her office briefcase, in the jewelry Dr. Bell had bought her. Every conversation revealed new horrors. They discussed problem patients who'd asked too many questions about side effects. They talked about falsifying death certificates, bribing coroners, eliminating witnesses, and they discussed me. Chris is asking questions about Andrew's research, Nina said during one recorded conversation. He mentioned your name specifically. How much does he know? Dr. Bell's voice carried aristocratic accent and implied threat. I don't think he has the full picture yet, but he's smart and persistent, like his uncle. Dr. Bell's tone grew colder. We can't let him dig deeper. Our operation is too valuable to risk exposure. What are you suggesting? The same solution we used before. NX13 is undetectable after 72 hours. One injection while he sleeps, he never wakes up. My chest turned to ice. They weren't just talking about covering up the past. They were planning my targeted disappearance. Nina's voice wavered. Victoria, no, I can't, not Chris. You didn't seem to have a problem with Andrew. That was different. Andrew was going to destroy everything we'd built. Chris is just curious. Curiosity eliminated the cat, darling. Dr. Bell's voice hardened. You're either with me completely or you're a liability. And you know how I handle liabilities. The threat was clear. Nina had become expendable too. That evening, she returned home pale and shaken. She barely touched dinner, jumping at every sound, glancing repeatedly at her phone. "Everything okay?" I asked, fighting to keep my voice casual. "Just work stress. This pharmaceutical compliance stuff is intense." Compliance. The irony was staggering. She was complying with neutralization orders. "Nina, if you ever needed to tell me something important, something that might be hard to hear, you know you could trust me, right?" Her eyes filled with tears. For a moment, I thought she might confess everything. Instead, she nodded and looked away. "Of course. We're a team." Team. Another lie to add to the mountain. But I had advantages they didn't know about. My security systems background had taught me surveillance, counter-surveillance, and how to disappear electronic footprints. More importantly, I'd learned patience from Andrew, how to build airtight cases that couldn't be dismissed or covered up. I began constructing their downfall methodically. First, I copied all of Andrew's evidence to secure servers in 3 different countries. Even if they removed me, the truth would survive. Second, I contacted investigative journalist Rachel Torres, who'd been following pharmaceutical fraud cases for years. I fed her information gradually, making her think she'd discovered the story herself. Third, I reached out to families of the 17 victims who'd died during Meridian's illegal trials. Most had accepted natural causes explanations, but several had harbored suspicions. I provided them with evidence their loved ones had been test subjects in unauthorized experiments, but I also needed direct confrontation. I needed Dr. Bell to confess her crimes on record, in circumstances that couldn't be dismissed or covered up. So I set a trap. I called Dr. Bell's office, identifying myself as Chris Marlowe, security consultant. "I'd like to schedule a meeting about potential vulnerabilities in your research data systems," I told her assistant. "Dr. Bell is quite busy. May I ask who referred you?" "My wife, Nina Marlowe. She speaks very highly of Dr. Bell's thoroughness in handling sensitive situations." There was a pause. "I'll see what I can do." An hour later, Dr. Bell called personally. Her voice was cultured, controlled, dangerous. "Mr. Marlowe, I understand you're interested in our security protocols." "Very interested, especially regarding sensitive clinical trial data that might be compromised." Her voice hardened slightly. "Perhaps we should meet in person. Are you familiar with the Riverside Industrial Park, Building C, Suite 200? Tonight, 8 p.m. I'll be there." "Excellent. Come alone. We have much to discuss about security vulnerabilities." The line went dead. Dr. Bell was moving faster than expected. Whatever they'd planned for my removal, it was happening tonight. I spent the afternoon preparing like I was going to war. Hidden cameras throughout the industrial park, motion sensors, audio recording equipment broadcasting live to multiple servers, emergency beacons that would alert law enforcement if my vital signs flatlined. If Dr. Bell tried to eliminate me, the world would watch it happen in real time. I also prepared for fight. A ceramic knife taped to my ankle, undetectable by metal scanners. Pepper spray disguised as breath spray. Andrew's notes included detailed lab-grade synthesis instructions. I recreated the compound in a clean room with help from one of his retired research associates. And most importantly, a syringe filled with NX-13 that I'd synthesized from Andrew's chemical analysis notes. If they tried to eliminate me with their own compound, I'd return the favor. My motion-triggered alert system was already syncing with federal servers. If my vitals dropped or the live stream was interrupted, 3 different federal agencies would deploy within minutes. At 7:45 p.m., I parked outside Building C. The area was deserted except for security cameras I'd installed that afternoon, streetlights casting long shadows between empty warehouses. Dr. Bell's silver Mercedes sat in the lot, engines still warm. 2 other vehicles I didn't recognize. Backup muscle, probably. Inside, the building felt like a tomb. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows down empty corridors, and my footsteps echoed ominously. Suite 200 was at the far end, door slightly ajar. Dr. Bell," I called out. "In here, Mr. Marlowe!" I pushed through the door into a stark conference room. Dr. Bell sat at the far end of a long table, immaculate in her tailored suit despite the late hour. Her silver hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. Behind her stood 2 men I didn't recognize. Corporate security, judging by their builds, and the subtle bulges under their jackets. "Please sit." Dr. Bell gestured to a chair across from her with manicured nails. "We have much to discuss." I remained standing, scanning for exits, threats, opportunities. About what? About your Uncle Andrew, about your wife Nina, about what happens next. I'm listening. Dr. Bell smiled with practiced coldness. Andrew was a brilliant researcher, passionate about patient safety. Unfortunately, he couldn't understand the bigger picture, which is progress requires sacrifice. Sometimes test subjects die so millions can live. Sometimes good people get hurt so corporations can save lives through innovation. Andrew couldn't accept that reality. So you eliminated him. We helped him find peace. Dr. Bell stood, straightening her jacket with practiced calm. The compound we used, NX13, causes rapid organ shutdown that perfectly mimics natural cardiac failure, completely undetectable. Very humane, really. And the 17 other victims of your illegal trials? Her smile widened with genuine pride. Necessary casualties in the war against disease. Their sacrifice will help Meridian develop compounds that save thousands. I personally oversaw each elimination to ensure minimal suffering. And Nina? What was her role in Andrew's elimination? Nina provided access and emotional cover. Andrew trusted family, you see. She arranged the hospital meeting where we administered the compound. Played her part beautifully, even held his hand while he passed. Such convincing grief. Rage exploded through my chest like molten lava. She participated in his execution? She chose progress over sentiment. I respect that in a woman, though lately she's been developing inconvenient feelings about our work. One of the security men moved closer, and I caught the glint of metal, not a magnum, but a syringe filled with clear liquid. The other positioned himself between me and the door. Don't fight, Dr. Bell advised. It only makes the process more unpleasant. And unlike Andrew, you won't have loving family holding your hand while you die. The first security man lunged forward with military precision. I stepped aside, letting his momentum carry him past, then drove my elbow into his spine with all my strength. He crashed into the conference table, scattering papers and electronic equipment. The second man drew his syringe, moving with trained efficiency. I grabbed a heavy glass ashtray from the table, hurling it at his face with deadly accuracy. It connected with a sickening crack, and he stumbled backward, red liquid streaming from his broken nose. Dr. Bell reached for an alarm button on the wall, but I tackled her across the table. We crashed to the floor in a tangle of expensive fabric and flailing limbs, her perfect hair disheveled, her makeup smeared, her aristocratic composure shattered. You think this ends here? She gasped, struggling beneath me with surprising strength. I have resources you can't imagine. Politicians, judges, entire police departments on my payroll. So do I. I pulled out my phone, showing her the live stream broadcasting to 17 different websites, 3 news networks, and the FBI's anonymous tip line. Everything she'd said, every confession, was now public record and evidence in federal databases. Her face went white as she realized the scope of her exposure. You're bluffing. That's inadmissible without proper warrants. Building security cameras, motion-activated recording devices, and direct feeds to major media outlets. Your confession just went viral. Check trending topics if you don't believe me. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Multiple agencies responding to federal alerts I'd triggered. But these weren't local cops responding to a break-in. These were federal agents responding to pharmaceutical fraud, illegal human experimentation, and conspiracy to commit elimination. Dr. Bell struggled to her feet, her perfectly tailored suit torn and stained with dark streaks from the struggle. This won't stick. I have lawyers who specialize in making problems disappear permanently. You have confessions, multiple attempted eliminations, pharmaceutical fraud worth billions, and 17 families who finally know how their loved ones really died. The first security man was groaning on the floor, clutching his spine where I'd struck him. The second sat against the wall, trying to stop the flow from his shattered nose and broken teeth. Dr. Bell stood between them, realizing her corporate muscle had failed completely. Where's Nina? I demanded. Gone. The moment you scheduled this meeting, she knew her usefulness had expired. You eliminated her too? Dr. Bell laughed with genuine amusement. Worse, I told her the truth about tonight, about what you'd discovered, about what was going to happen to her precious husband. My stomach dropped. What truth? That her beloved husband was coming to destroy everything she'd worked for. That you'd rather see her in federal prison than protect her. That you were willing to sacrifice her to avenge Andrew. She didn't take the news well. The doors burst open with explosive force. SWAT officers flooded in, weapons drawn, tactical gear gleaming under fluorescent lights. On the ground. Now. Hands visible. I raised my hands, backing away from Dr. Bell. I'm the one who called this in. The evidence is streaming live to FBI servers. The lead officer studied his tablet, then nodded grimly. Mr. Marlowe, we've been monitoring your broadcast. Dr. Bell, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and conspiracy to commit elimination. As they forced Dr. Bell to her knees, zip-tying her hands behind her back, she shot me a final glare full of aristocratic venom. She chose me, you know. When I gave her the chance to warn you, to save you, she chose her career instead. The words hit like physical blows. Even knowing Nina's betrayal, part of me had hoped she'd been coerced, manipulated. But she'd actively chosen Dr. Bell over me, over family, over truth. She's at the private airfield, Dr. Bell continued as they hauled her upright. Flight plan filed for Switzerland. Though I doubt she'll make it past customs with federal warrants being issued as we speak. The lead agent was already radioing commands. All units, suspect Nina Marlowe, flight risk, federal warrants incoming. Lock down all airports, private airfields, border crossings. Consider armed and extremely dangerous. As they dragged Dr. Bell away, she called back with aristocratic disdain. You destroyed everything she cared about. See how she thanks you for your devotion. The next hours blurred together in a haze of federal interviews, evidence documentation, and media chaos. The story exploded across every network. Pharmaceutical conspiracy exposed, illegal human experiments, corporate elimination scheme uncovered. Meridian Pharmaceuticals' stock crashed to zero within hours. Trading was suspended as investigators froze assets and seized records. 17 families filed wrongful death lawsuits seeking billions in damages. Congressional committees announced immediate investigations into pharmaceutical oversight failures. But Nina had vanished like smoke. Federal agents raided the private airfield, finding her chartered jet still on the tarmac, engines warm, fuel loaded for international flight. She'd been there. Security footage showed her arriving with multiple suitcases and briefcases full of stolen research data. But somehow she'd escaped before authorities arrived. The investigation revealed the scope of her betrayal went far beyond what I'd imagined. She'd been funneling research data to overseas pharmaceutical companies for nearly 3 years, selling clinical trial results to the highest bidders. Her Swiss accounts contained over $3.2 million in illegal payments from foreign corporations. More devastating was the evidence of her direct participation in eliminations. Security footage from the hospital showed her injecting something into Andrew's IV line while pretending to comfort him. Audio recordings captured her discussing which problem patients should be silenced permanently. She hadn't been manipulated or coerced. She'd been an enthusiastic participant in corporate elimination, driven by greed and ambition rather than fear. 3 weeks later, I was testifying before a Senate subcommittee on pharmaceutical oversight when my lawyer burst into the waiting room with wild eyes. They found her, he said breathlessly. Nina, she's been arrested. The capture had been dramatic and violent. International bounty hunters had tracked her to a luxury resort in Costa Rica, where she'd been living under a false identity provided by Swiss banking contacts. She'd resisted arrest with unexpected ferocity, trying to bribe local police with stolen pharmaceutical research worth millions on the black market. When that failed, she'd attempted to escape through the resort's marina, stealing a speedboat and leading authorities on a high-speed chase through international waters. The pursuit ended when she crashed into a coral reef, sustaining serious injuries that required emergency surgery. The extradition took 6 months of legal battles, diplomatic negotiations, and media coverage. Nina's Swiss lawyers claimed she was being persecuted for whistleblowing, despite overwhelming evidence of her criminal participation. International pharmaceutical lobby groups pressured foreign governments to block her return. But finally, Nina was returned to face justice in federal court. The day she arrived back in the country, I was waiting at the airport. Not to see her, I never wanted to see her again, but to ensure she couldn't escape again. Federal marshals led her through the terminal in shackles and orange jumpsuit, replacing her designer clothes. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. The confident legal counsel who'd once commanded boardrooms had been replaced by a desperate fugitive with hollow eyes, graying hair, and visible scars from her boat crash. Our eyes met briefly as they led her past the media gauntlet. She mouthed the word sorry, but it meant nothing. Sorry didn't resurrect Andrew. Sorry didn't undo the 17 innocent people eliminated in illegal experiments. Sorry didn't erase her choice to prioritize money over truth. The trial began 8 months later, after extensive pretrial motions and media coverage. Federal prosecutors had built an airtight case using my evidence, Dr. Bell's confessions, and testimony from pharmaceutical whistleblowers worldwide. Nina faced 37 federal charges, including conspiracy to commit elimination, fraud, racketeering, and obstruction of justice. I attended every day of proceedings, sitting in the gallery, watching my former wife dissect our marriage for legal advantage. Her defense team painted her as a victim of Dr. Bell's manipulation, claiming she'd been coerced through threats and psychological manipulation. The prosecutor, Sarah Blackwood, destroyed that narrative methodically with devastating efficiency. Audio recordings of Nina laughing about problem patients being eliminated, financial records showing her enthusiastic acceptance of bribery payments, security footage of her personally administering lethal compounds to unconscious victims. Most damning was her recorded conversation with Dr. Bell about my planned elimination. Dr. Bell, we need to eliminate Chris before he exposes everything. Nina, what about making it look accidental? Car crash, home invasion, pharmaceutical overdose? Dr. Bell, too risky. NXE13 is cleaner. He goes to sleep, never wakes up. Nina, will it hurt? Will he suffer? Dr. Bell, does it matter? He's threatening everything we've built. Nina, no, I suppose it doesn't matter. The courtroom was silent as they played that recording. Jurors stared at Nina with disgust and horror. Her own parents, sitting in the front row, looked ashamed and heartbroken. When Nina took the stand in her own defense, the cross-examination was brutal and methodical. Prosecutor Blackwood systematically destroyed every excuse, every justification, every claim of victimhood. Mrs. Marlowe, did Dr. Bell force you to inject NX13 into your husband's uncle? No, but the circumstances? Yes or no, Mrs. Marlowe? Did she physically force you? No. Did she threaten your life if you didn't participate? Not directly, but the implication? Yes or no, Mrs. Marlowe? Nina's voice was barely audible. No. Did you receive payment for your participation? I received compensation for my consulting work. You received $200,000 deposited to your Swiss account the day after Andrew Marlowe died. Correct? Yes. Did you spend this money on luxury items, designer clothes, expensive jewelry, a new car? Yes. You purchased a $50,000 necklace with payment earned from your uncle-in-law's elimination. Is that correct? Nina broke down sobbing, her careful composure finally cracking. I never meant for anyone to die. I thought they were just going to scare him. But when Andrew Marlowe did die, you didn't report it to authorities. You didn't confess. You didn't stop the illegal experiments. Instead, you continued participating, didn't you? Yes. You helped plan 17 additional eliminations over the following months. Correct. Yes. Including the planned elimination of your own husband? Nina's voice was a whisper. Yes. And you personally administered lethal compounds to unconscious victims on at least 3 occasions? Yes. For money? Yes. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood with grim determination. On the charge of conspiracy to commit elimination in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of racketeering, guilty. On the charge of fraud, guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, guilty. 37 guilty verdicts. Nina collapsed as each one was read, her defense team catching her before she hit the floor. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Federal Judge Patricia Rodriguez had reviewed every piece of evidence, every testimony, every detail of Nina's crimes. Mrs. Marlowe, she began with stern authority, your crimes represent a fundamental betrayal of trust that goes beyond personal relationships into the realm of public safety. You participated in the systematic elimination of innocent people, including your own family member, for financial gain. The court recognizes that Dr. Bell was the primary architect of this conspiracy. However, your enthusiastic participation, your personal financial gain, and your attempted elimination of your own husband demonstrate a level of moral corruption that demands severe consequences. You have shown no genuine remorse, only regret at being caught. Your testimony revealed a calculating individual who viewed human life as expendable for corporate profit. The court sentences you to life in federal prison without possibility of parole. Additionally, you will forfeit all assets obtained through criminal activity, approximately $3.7 million, which will be distributed to victims' families. Furthermore, this court recommends you be placed in protective custody, as your cooperation with prosecutors has likely made you a target for remaining conspirators. Nina's scream echoed through the courtroom as marshals led her away in chains. Her parents rushed toward her, but security blocked their path. The woman who'd once commanded corporate boardrooms was now property of the federal prison system forever. As the courtroom emptied, Dr. Bell's conviction was also announced. Life imprisonment without parole for orchestrating the entire conspiracy. Her corporate security team received 30-year sentences in exchange for testimony against remaining Meridian executives. But my revenge wasn't complete, not yet. Over the following months, I systematically destroyed everyone connected to Andrew's elimination. Using evidence from Nina's files, I exposed corrupt FDA officials who'd accepted bribes to suppress safety reports. 3 resigned in disgrace. 2 faced federal charges that would end their careers permanently. I leaked financial records showing which politicians had received pharmaceutical lobby money in exchange for blocking oversight legislation. Congressional ethics investigations followed, ending several careers and triggering special elections. Most satisfying was destroying Meridian's entire corporate structure from the inside out. Using insider information Nina had provided Dr. Bell, I identified shell companies, offshore accounts, and subsidiary organizations across 17 countries. Working with international law enforcement, we seized assets worth over $2.3 billion. The company's research facilities were shuttered permanently. Their patents were revoked by international regulatory agencies. Executive assets were frozen pending criminal investigations. Within a year, Meridian Pharmaceuticals ceased to exist as anything more than a legal liability. But the real victory was legislative and regulatory reform. Andrew's elimination sparked comprehensive pharmaceutical oversight legislation. The Marlowe Act mandated independent oversight of all clinical trials, criminalized corporate retaliation against whistleblowers, and established victim compensation funds financed by industry profits. Andrew's death had prevented future tragedies, saving thousands of lives through systematic reform. A year after Nina's sentencing, I visited Andrew's grave one final time. His headstone now bore additional inscription: whistleblower, truth seeker, hero. His sacrifice saved thousands. It's finished, I told him, placing fresh flowers beside the marker. Everyone who participated in your elimination has paid. The system that enabled it has been destroyed completely. Your sacrifice saved more lives than we'll ever know. I left a folder of newspaper clippings documenting the complete destruction of Nina's conspirators. Headlines about pharmaceutical reform, new FDA regulations, congressional investigations that had cleansed corruption from the entire industry. Walking back to my car, I pulled out my phone and opened a new document. Marlowe Security Consulting, Specialized Corporate Investigations. When family betrays you, when corporations eliminate whistleblowers, when justice seems impossible, we build cases that destroy our targets completely. No mercy, no compromise, no survivors. Call Chris Marlowe when you need enemies eliminated permanently through legal means. Nina had taught me that love without trust was meaningless. But she'd also taught me that revenge, methodically planned and ruthlessly executed, could reshape entire industries and prevent future tragedies. My phone rang immediately. A potential client worried about financial irregularities at their pharmaceutical company. Marlowe Security, I answered with cold satisfaction. How can I help you destroy your enemies completely? The transformation was complete. I'd started as Chris, the trusting husband. I'd become Chris the avenging destroyer, the corporate eliminator, the man who terminated conspiracies with the same ruthless efficiency they'd used to eliminate Andrew. Nina rotted in federal prison, her life sentence ensuring she'd never again betray anyone's trust. Dr. Bell faced decades behind bars, her reputation and fortune obliterated. Their conspiracy had been cremated, its ashes scattered to prevent any resurrection. Andrew was avenged. Justice was served. And I'd found my true calling, using the enemy's own methods to destroy them completely and permanently.